unit. Dang. Oh man. Licensee admitted to management that she took. That's all it take. That's all it take. That's all it take. Hey everyone, I am your fave nurse B. Let's get into this video. They have something called the Naughty Nurse List. Now, it's not officially called the Naughty Nurse List, but all of my teachers in nursing school, they refer to it as that. Now, as a preface, this is not to, poke fun at anybody or to take light of what people are going through if they lose their license, because I know we all work very hard for our license, except for people who bought it. I mean, which I had to get the money to buy it, so I mean, I guess I did work hard for it. But people that work hard for their license, they covet it. Like, you always talk like cover yourself, da 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 da. You don't want to lose your license. But anyhow, let's do this. Okay, so it even says the person's name. It says the name, the county that they're in, or the city that they're in, and the state, and they have their license number, because your license number, all of that is considered public records anyways. So let's go into it. On November, the yada yada yada, they got a date in a year. Licensee was observed to be in discomfort prior to the beginning of her shift and reported the beginnings of a migraine. Licensee indicated that she had taken in imetrics and should be feeling better soon. Imetrics is like something you take for migraines. I remember learning about that. A co-worker witnessed licensee entering the ED medication room prior to her shift and reported she believed the imetrics was obtained from the ED Pyxis dispensing unit. Dang! Oh man. Review of camera footage and interview with witnesses revealed that licensee had obtained 1 pill of imetrics without authorization and taking it to relieve the onset of a migraine. Licensee admitted to management that she took. That's all it take? That's all it take? That's all it take. Well, dang. Okay, so what do y'all think of that? Now, of course, like, why would you go through a Pyxis and take some meds? Like, the camera right there, like, I wouldn't do all that. I would just say I can't work that day. I just can't. But yeah, that's what happened when you in a dang on what do you call it, when you in the hospitals. They watching everything. Person was this is LPN. Okay, so the other person was a registered nurse. This one is an LPN. It said the LPN practiced in the state of Missouri without a license between June of 2018 to November of 2019. So for about over a year, this person worked without a license. So why does that take away her license if she didn't have a license? Okay. All right. It says on January, yada, 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 a resident was found in his room unresponsive at 06:55 by a CNA. The CNA entered the room with another CNA who notified licensee that the resident was unresponsive and with no pulse. Licensee did not initially initiate CPR measures. There was a time lapse of approximately 10 to 15 minutes before licensee determined the resident was a full cold and started CPR. DHSS placed licensee on the employee disqualification list for a period of 1 year. Yeah. Okay, so when you're working in a nursing home, yeah, for one, I already talked about it in my videos, you could have like 40, 50 patients to yourself. Maybe you might have a CMC helping you, and hopefully you got some CNAs on the floor, but not always. You do not always know your patient's code status. And if you don't have your computer right next to you, if you don't know it automatically, if they don't have a list of the person's code status, there's no way to get to it fast enough. I don't know about 10 to 15 minutes. I would say maybe like 5 minutes before you initiate it, because of the person. So basically, if a person has cold status, which is basically them letting you know, okay, whether or not if something were to happen to me, I'm not breathing anymore, do I want you to make attempts to bring me back, or do I want you to just be okay, they gone, and go from there? So this person was a full cold, meaning that you have to resuscitate. Well, you have to take measures to resuscitate them. So if the person had maybe a DNR, so do not resuscitate order, and you started to give them CPR, that could be considered assault, because they already put orders in. Yeah, I don't know why my tongue. Like I'm biting my tongue. See, let me sip my tea, child. See, we getting messy on this video. So let me sip my tea, okay? Help the libation go through, you know, the throat chakra. Hold on. Let me sip this real tea before I get out this nurse tea. Okay, so yeah, so I can see some of the hesitation there about starting CPR, because if you don't know, you don't want to start it on somebody who's not supposed to get it. But if you don't know and they're supposed to get it, you want to start CPR on them. Dang. So you know what happened. The family probably came and was like, what happened, yada yada yada, and the CNA was like, yeah, it took them forever to go ahead and start doing CPR on them, da, 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 da. That's usually what happened. Like, if not everybody is in compliance with what's going on. I'm not saying that you're supposed to just be lying and, you know, da da da, but we all know that you're supposed to help, you know. Never mind, let me just move on to the next person. But dang, yeah, it's hard to know your patient's code status. It's not always easy to get to, especially, like, say this was an agency nurse working. If you don't know, like, the system of how to get in there and find a person's code status, that can be very hard. And I've even seen orders where a person will have both a status of CPR and no CPR, and I'd be like, okay, or they won't even have a code status in the computer at all. Like, they definitely need to, but sometimes it happens. Say that person came last night on evening shift and nobody put a code status in the computer. No one came to actually, what do you call it, review the chart of the patient, and we don't have any type of paperwork. It can definitely happen. I can see how this could have happened, but I can also see the nurse being like, let me find out what the code status is. Let me see. But with things like this, you should definitely try your best to either have a list. I know at my old job, when I was working at a place, like as a full staff nurse, we would have to, every shift, at the end of your shift, you had to do you had to print off an updated list of the patient's code status, and then there was this clipboard, and everybody at the end of the shift was supposed to make sure that the code status, what do you call it, the code status clipboard was updated, and they had it like right there on the nurse's station. And of course it was like a piece of paper that was like code status or whatever, so you weren't able to just see it. You had to actually flip it open. But if anything were to happen, the CNA, the CMT, whatever, could know to just run down there, grab the board and take it to the nurse or whomever, so they can go ahead and do it. But code statuses can change any freaking time throughout the shift as well. So yeah, or it could change shift to shift. So yeah, I can see how this could happen, but pay attention to them code statuses, y'all, okay? All right, let's see. During a review of recordings from the night of, and they got the date, to the morning of that date, licensee, oh, this is horrible. Licensee was observed mistreating patient, and then it has the patient's initial, under her care. Oh, this is horrible. The recording also showed licensee restraining the patient by placing a chair under the footrest of the patient's chair he was sitting in. Okay, so they wasn't able to get up. Licensee was also witnessed aggressively pushing the patient's legs back in his chair when he attempted to get out of the chair. Additionally, licensee was witnessed crossing the patient's wrist and pressing them into his chest in an intimidating manner. The resident was observed to cower away from licensee. Licensee was additionally observed pulling the patient's foot out from under him and swinging his legs over the geriatric chair. The patient has dementia, is non-communicative. He displayed aggressive behaviors, but usually when he needed to use the restroom or was hungry. After another employee took the patient to the restroom, the patient calmed down. Woo! So this person is on probation, and they're actually in Illinois, even though this is for Missouri. Child. Contigo, where you at? I love Contigo. Come through with the deal, please. But y'all, woo. Okay, so we already know that it's basically illegal to restrain somebody without a doctor's order. And then, you know, like in nursing school, they teach you like the doctor order for a restraint has to be updated like every 24 hours, right? But you might think that only restraints are like getting like the soft wrist like restraints or something like that. But if a patient is unable to move their body freely, that's considered a restraint. I've seen facilities put patients like in Adirondack chairs, you know, those chairs that are, I'll put a picture of it. And sometimes that can be considered a restraint because the patient is not able to push themselves up and get out. It's even to the point where bed rails, you know how bed rails are on the side of the bed. I remember when I was a nurse or even a CNA, we used to always have bed rails, and I feel like they were really good because patients would be so scared. They're in this little bitty twin size bed and they're like, I'm scared I'm gonna fall out. Or you try to turn them and then like they're like they don't want to turn because like they feel like they go flip out the bed, but if they had that bed rail, they can hold on to that. So I remember that we had a DON when she came into our facility. She was like, we getting rid of all the bed rails. That's a restraint and it's a health issue because a patient got caught up in it and ended up strangling themselves in the bed rail. Now, of course, I don't know everything around it. People wasn't watching. I don't know, but that happened. So she was like, that's a restraint. We taking it away. So now they have these things called a sys rail. It's like a little bar with a circle around it. And that's something that the patient can use to hold on to. But you can only get one of those on one side of the bed and you have to have a doctor's order for it. But in this situation, I was going to say also, just having an alarm on somebody's bed can be considered a restraint. So you know how we used to have this a lot, especially when I was a CNA back in the day, where as soon as a patient get up, you would hear beep, 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 and that would hopefully help the patient be like, oh shoot, what's going on? They sit back down. They consider that a restraint because in some way you are stopping that person from moving freely. But if same said person were to fall, break their hip or their arm, their rib, or just have a fall in general, that's a ding on you. Like that looks bad on you, especially you see this person has fallen 10 times in 1 month, and it happens, trust me. They fall. It's a ding on you as a nurse. And it's hard to sometimes get medications to help the patient to relax. And with this patient, if they were non-communicative, and they can have combative behaviors. So I'm not saying that the nurse was right in what they did, not at all. But I'm just giving y'all examples of how stuff like this ends up happening. Again, especially if this nurse probably already has a lot of other patients. This is why in healthcare, like you really have to get your mindset together and try to really work on making sure you are balanced, grounded, and whole individual. Because going to work, especially dealing with patients who have dementia, Alzheimer's, who have confusion, who are combative, who are like really always trying to get up and do something, always get into something, especially if you have more than one patient like that. Oh my goodness. I remember when I new nurse and we had like 5 patients who kept trying to get up and fall, to the point where we would have to have everybody lined up at the nurse's station, and there always had to be one person at the nurse's desk watching everybody, trying to entertain everybody, trying to make sure everybody was fine, everybody was cool. That was how I was. Like that's what was going on. And to the point where he'd be like, okay, you need to go answer your light. Okay, I'll sit down here. I gotta wait for the doctor to call back anyways. Go ahead and answer your light, or go ahead and go on break. We would have to tag each other in, for real. But in this case, it's like the nurse is being very aggressive, and it's on camera, dude. But the thing that made it restrained is because I guess the nurse put something underneath the patient's legs to stop them from being able to sit up, and that was a restraint. So keep in mind what's considered a restraint in your facility. It's like you're trying to protect the patient and keep them safe, on top of also making sure that they can freely move and do their own thing. But it's like if they freely move and do their own thing, they might fall. But like in this case, they said that the CNA went ahead and took the patient to the bathroom and they was cool. So y'all tell me what y'all think about that. That sounded bad. That sounded real bad when I was reading it. But I digress. Oh, okay. This is pediatrics. So it says licensee received corrective action for sleeping in a chair while holding an infant. When questioned, licensee indicated that she was tired. So this happened in July. The next year in January, The licensee was discovered sleeping while holding an infant patient for feeding. When questioned, licensee indicated that she was experiencing health issues. Didn't I say we gotta take care of ourselves? And her blood sugar was low. Licensee did not deny that she had fallen asleep. Licensee recognized her issues and did request a change in her schedule to accommodate that. However, before facility management was able to accommodate the schedule change, the second incident had happened. So this person, it shows how long they're on probation too. So this person is on probation from February of 2020 to February of 2022. And then the other, because this is from 2020, I told you I had these for a long time. And then the other person before that who had the aggressive behavior with the patient, their stuff was revoked for a year as well. So they had 1 year of probation. Okay, so in this instance, we know you ain't supposed to sleep with no baby in your hand. Like, we already know that. Like, you can't even do that, and it's your own child. You ain't supposed to sleep with them. Like, in a hospital, they come in like, oh, you need to put them in a bassinet. Come on, wake up, put them in a bassinet, sit up, do something. They don't even let you do it with your own baby. So, of course, they ain't gonna let you do it at work. Okay, so let's look at this next one. On or about March of 2028, a resident complained of difficulty breathing. Licensee did not take the resident's vitals. Licensee instructed a nurse aide to check the resident's O2 and to administer a breathing treatment to the resident. Dang, okay, CNAs be doing it? Not administering a breathing treatment. Okay. Both of these skills performed by the nurse aide was outside of the scope of the nurse's aide. So I can see how some people would say, well, having the nurse aide to check the pulse ox is still within their within their scope of practice. But remember that the nurse is the one that should be doing the vital signs if there's any change in condition. Now, if the person if we already have a baseline for the patient and we're just doing routine vital signs, definitely the CNA, the PCT can check the vitals. But if there's an emergency, there's a complaint, something's going on, the nurse is the one that needs to do it. Because if a person is having difficulty breathing, checking their O2, they can have a 92, 95 O2, and you be like, okay, they good. But you have to put eyes on the patient, because what if the respirations are like 29? You get what I'm saying? Like, yeah, they O2 is good, but something's going on if their respirations are that fast. What if they're using accessory muscles? So, usually we either breathe from like our chest or from our belly, but if they're like, if this something like they're using some other muscles to breathe, then there's some distress going on with the patient. Are you looking at the patient? Do they look kind of blue tinged, or do they kind of look kind of gray, pale? What else is going on with your patient? You need to do that. You got to assess the lung sounds, things like that. All of that has to be happening. Of course, we know CNAs, PCTs are not supposed to give them breathing treatment. So let's see. But PCTs might be able to, because they can do a lot. But CNAs, I know for sure, no. Both of these skills performed by the nurse aide are outside of the scope of practice. On the next day, at approximately, so this was the night shift, she was the night nurse. At 4:30 at night, the licensee found the resident unresponsive in his wheelchair with no pulse and no respirations. Licensee failed to initiate CPR on the resident, who was a spill code. Licensee failed to contact the facility's director of nursing. Yeah, they was all the way wrong. They was wrong. I'm going to just put it like that. They was wrong. They was wrong. I really can't say nothing about, I can't even justify none of this. Especially as night shift. Not to say night shift isn't hard. Yes, it has its difficulties. But at night, especially, yeah. So the thing is, this probably happened like, see, it said it started off on March one day and then the next day. So this person probably worked from like 11 to 7 in the morning. So this happened, honestly, right when they probably came in. And the issues might have started on the evening shift, right? They probably was already having that downward issues on the evening shift. The night shift nurse probably just wasn't trying to get in there fast enough to check on the patient and never went back to see how the patient was doing after the breathing treatment. Child, the breathing treatment was probably still on the patient going when they passed away. Like, legit. Because if anybody know, you give a breathing treatment, it's supposed to be there for like 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes maybe, and you come off, turn it off. But if you forget to go in there and turn it off, that machine was probably sitting there going off. And this is sad. The person died. Oh, this sucks. This sucks. And you didn't call the DON? Like, what was you thinking? So did you just let this happen and then you just clocked out? Like, I don't get... Y'all, that's that. Let me know. I still have some more stuff in here, but I want to see how y'all think about this video. If y'all want to have more videos like this, let me know. Again, this is called the Naughty Nurse List. And I'm not doing this to kind of bash people, but just really to be a cautionary tale to inform you all of what's going out here, what's going on in the nursing world, and what can happen. Sometimes the smallest things, like the nurse taking a freaking pill out of the Pyxis. But I feel like you should know that. Like, in long-term care, if a person from, I've had people from like laundry be like, oh my God, I'm cramping so bad, can you give me ibuprofen? And it's a stock med. It's in a little container. It's just a facility stock med. I will give you some ibuprofen. Like, now if you come to me and be like, oh girl, my tooth is hurting, can I get some what do people take for toothache? No, they be like, oh girl, I need to get some antibiotics. I got some antibiotics wrong. Like, I'm not gonna give you a patient antibiotics, no. Or you talking about some, oh, I'm having nerve pain, can I get some gabapentin? I ain't gonna be popping out gabapentins from a patient to get it, you know. But some Tylenol, some ibuprofen out of a pill bottle that's stocked, I will do that. Should I even say that? I don't know. But but actually going into a Pyxis and taking it out, like, you didn't think that it was gonna show like that there wasn't, like, there was an issue with the count. Like, I don't get that. I don't get it. You should have drank some coffee or something to help with that dang on migraine, or went home. You know what? We're gonna keep going. I might make this a part 2. Let's keep going.